All right, Chavre, good morning. If you can hear me. Yeah, you can hear?
Yes, Rabbi.
Yes, Rabbi. Good morning.
We can hear you, Rabbi. Good morning.
All right. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Shabbos Daf Nun Aleph. We're going to continue to learn various details about Hatmana, insulating a pot of food in substances that do not add heat. And as we mentioned, that is something that is allowed to be done before Shabbos. We're going to be learning about what happens if one wants to insulate cold food for it to stay cold. Is that also included in the prohibition, or is that something that's permitted? We're going to touch today a little bit on the topic of Bishul Akum, the exceptions, where it does not pose a problem if a non-Jew warmed up or heated up certain foods. We're going to be learning about a person who wants to change the insulation on Shabbos. We're going to touch in the Gemara also about a very important limitation to the Isur of Atmana, and I hope we spoke this out during our introduction. We did, and that is that the Isur of Atmana is only if you are insulating a Klei Rishon. That is where we say that it may not be done on Shabbos. But if a person is insulating a Klei Sheni, right, and they're putting it in a substance that does not add heat, that is something that they are allowed to do even on Shabbos. We're going to learn in a Rashi, but it will be an opportunity to speak out a difference and therefore to clarify confusions that some people make between moilid and noilad. Whenever we speak about moilad or moilid in Hilchos Shabbos, it's connected to the Abba of Boina. Noilad is a muktzah issue. One is Doiraisa, one is the Rabbanan. We'll speak it out when we get there. God willing, we're going to start today the 5th chapter, Bameh Behema Yoitzo, and it's important to clarify that the prohibition of having our animals violate any one of the malachas of Shabbos, with exceptions, isn't only if you are leading the animal. There is a unique prohibition for Mechamed, but even if you're not Mechamed, even if one is not leading their animals, having my animals violate any of the Lamates malachas is, to begin with, as a premise, problematic, prohibited, because of the obligation known as shvisas behemtai. My animal has to rest on Shabbos. Now, there are exceptions to that. For example, my animal can eat on Shabbos. Even if while it's eating, it's harvesting, it's ripping plants, grass out of the ground, or any other malacha that the animal is doing for the animal, that's not a problem. But anything that the animal is doing, so to say, for the owner, even if the owner is not there leading the animal on, is prohibited midoiraisa. There's a machlokes whether it's a violation of a lav, whether it's a violation of a mitzvah saseh, but this is known as shvisas behemtai. Now, this also, therefore, will include carrying. However, carrying, there are exceptions where one's animal is allowed to carry. One would be if the animal is wearing what we call apparel. As we'll see, if the item that the animal is wearing is like garments for a person, it's there to protect the animal from elements. According to Rashi, an animal that's wearing an ornament, tachshit, just like by a person, a tachshit is not called carrying. My animal, according to some Rishonim, let's speak about Rashi, is also going to be allowed. There's another exception where it's not a problem if my animal is carrying hoitza'ah, and that would be if that which is around my animal, that which is garbed on my animal, is in order to help a person restrain the animal. That would include a leash. We're going to speak about various devices that were used for different types of animals. Some of them were stronger, some of them were nose rings. If an animal is, the more wild the animal, the harder that it is to restrain the animal, the greater the item, the stronger the item that was put on the animal, and all of this will be permitted. Question will be, what happens if you have an animal that a simple restraining device would have sufficed to be able to control the animal, and you put something beyond what's needed, excessive, but it's still restraining the animal? Is that going to be okay because it's to restrain the animal, or since it's excessive restraint, maybe that's going to be prohibited? And much more will be discussed on Daf Nun Aleph. Let us start on Daf Nun Aleph, Amud Aleph, 3 lines from the top of the Amud. We left off by the new Mishnah.
Amen.
Okay, says the Mishnah. More about Hatmana. Bedavar she'einoi moisif hevel, which is the Hatmana that may be done before Shabbos. So here's the Mishnah speaks it out clearly. Like you saw me ba'od yom, if you did not do Hatmana before Shabbos, even though the substance in which you're putting your pot won't add any hevel, lo yechasenu mishatachshach, like that, like we learned, we're not allowed to initially do Hatmana on Shabbos. And here, let's learn that Rashi. It's going to be important to understand a piece of the Gemara later today. Says Rashi, lo yechasenu mishatachshach, hapadish natama b'perik beis. The reason was already given in the second perik, daf lamed daled. Pnei ma'amru ein toyim b'davar she'eino moisuv hevel mishachasheichon. Gzeira shema yartiach. Because the purpose of Hatmana is you want something to at least maintain its heat. What's going to happen if on Shabbos you realize that it's already a shtickle cold? So maybe you're going to mamish warm it up on Shabbos, violating Yisur Bishul, and then insulate it. So therefore, they made Gzeira. You can't insulate anything on Shabbos to begin with. Now, says the Mishnah, Kiso, if you made this insulation prior to Shabbos, Vinis Gala, and it got uncovered, now mutar lachasoisoi, you are allowed to re-insulate it. You're not doing it lachatchila. It's not a hatmana. It's not called chilas hatmana. It was already insulated. Now, this will also help clarify when we learned the Mishnah on Daf Mem Tes, right? When you insulated something in muksa. So the Mishnah was speaking about how you get it out, but then it might collapse. All of that you see from Daf Mem Tes that you can re-put it in. Taka, that's the din, just to make it clear. As long as this item was insulated from before Shabbos, it could be re-insulated on Shabbos. Now, the words of the Mishnah is vinisgala. Vinisgala means literally not that you uncovered it, not that you took it out of the insulation. It got uncovered. One can erroneously think that when are you allowed to re-insulate it on Shabbos if the original insulation fell off? But if you took it off, you might think from the Mishnah, then you are not allowed to put it back in the insulation. So very important Tosfos, right? The second Tosfos in the Amid, Kisov and Izgala mutar lachasvaisoi. Nida Lari says Tosfos, the who adin the mutar legaloisi b'yadayim. Even lachatchila, you can take it out of your towel, take it out of your blanket, lechatchila, and and you are allowed to do it. Just like you're allowed to do chazara when we meet the conditions that we spoke about in the last Perikida. Felice says that he asks, so why does the Mishnah use a lashon of b'diavad if it happened in Isgala? Huge chiddush in Tosfos. Says Tosfos because the Mishnah is speaking about a case that Nisgala mi ba'od yom. Wow, you insulated it Friday. It fell off on Friday. The blanket fell off on Friday. You can re-put it in the blanket on Shabbos. That is only because the blanket fell off. But if you would have taken it out of the blanket, then since you took it out from before Shabbos, putting it back in there on Shabbos is already called chilas hatmana. This is very important. What's going on over here? Because when Shabbos entered, it was insulated, then biyadayim, you can take it out of the insulation and you can put it back in the insulation. And you don't even have to meet all of the conditions that we learned in last Perek when it comes to chazara. You have to leave it in one hand, you have to have kavanah, none of that is needed here. More than that, if you insulated it before Shabbos, and not you, but the insulator fell off, vinisgala, before Shabbos, and you didn't even put it back in before Shabbos, you could put it in on Shabbos. Because you did an act of hatmana, it fell off by itself. The falling off by itself is not mevatel your active hatmana, so re-putting it in is okay. So,
Rabbi, is that the halacha?
I'm sorry?
Is that the halacha? Is that how we hold?
I don't know. That's a good question because this is Tosfos. Chlal, as a rule,
I understand.
It's good to check. It's good. I don't do hatmana. I don't remember this. I don't know that many people nowadays that do hatmana. Because we have these electric plates, we have so many these simpler ways of having a fire, and for there not to be shehiyah, that's what everyone does today. You have a blech. But nevertheless, I'm sure people still do hatman. I just don't know them.
Thank you.
Okay. Second in the Mishnah. Memale yasakitoin, a person can fill a bottle of cold water on Shabbos. And put it under a cushion, or under a blanket. In other words, you're taking an item that's cold and you are insulating it for it to remain cold. That is something that could be done on Shabbos. And the reason is obvious now that we learned the first Rasi in the Mishnah. Because why can you not insulate for heat? Because since you want it to be hot and for it to maintain its heat, you might be tempted to heat it up. If the kavanah is to keep it cold, then okay, so why would you ever heat it up to keep it cold? The whole reason is not shayach here. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel begins the Gemara. It sounds like he's repeating a din in the Mishnah, which is a problem because why would we need him for that? You could insulate on Shabbos cold in order to keep it cold. Amar Rabbi Yosef hears this and he says, Michael Mashmuel, and why did we need Shmuel to teach us that? Tanina, that's our Mishnah. Memala Adam Kitoin. Clear, the Mishnah says you can insulate cold. Abaye tells Rabbi Yosef, no. Shmuel was needed a lot. The Imi Masnisan, had we only had the Mishnah Havamina, we would have erroneously thought, when are we allowed to insulate cold for it to remain cold? When you are being matmin an item that you normally keep cold. So Rashi says, for example, water. And that taka clear, the Mishnah says you are allowed to insulate water that's cold. Let's say it's a very hot day. So you're putting it in a place for it to remain cold. That yet. But something that most people insulate for it to be warm. Let's say you have a solid piece of chicken, even though you are insulating it for it to remain cold. But many people insulate it for it to remain warm. And even though the chicken is cold, some people will put a chicken under or in this insulator for it to at least warm up a little bit. So sometimes people do that, and in that case, it's going to be usher, like we mentioned. Even b'davar she'ein ha'moisav hevel, you may not do a tchilas hatmana on Shabbos. So even though your intent is to keep it cold, maybe the Chazal would say you may not do it. So that is, for that we needed Shmuel. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, that as long as your intent is insulating this item for it to remain cold, then no matter what other people might do with this item, you are allowed to do it on Shabbos. Beautiful. Amar Rav Huna. And let's go with the girsa of the Maseiras Hashas, Amar Rebbe. Now, that's the intro. Whenever we spoke out a few times, Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rebbe means he heard it directly from Rebbe. So we're speaking about Rav Huna. Did he learn by Rebbe? I don't know, but let's go with this girsa anyways. Asur lahatman esatzainan. Rebbe says you may not insulate cold to keep it cold. Well, first of all, doesn't bother me that our Mishnah says you could. Rebbe's Atana. Problem is, especially when we go with the girsa that Rav Huna said it in the name of Rebbe. Rebbe said asur. For Hatanya, we learned in a Braisa that Rebbe hitir lahatman esatzainan. Rebbe allowed to insulate cold. So the Gemara says it's not a problem because Rebbe changed his mind, and we know when he changed his mind, and we know why he changed his mind. Like Hashem, the first statement that we had, that Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rebbe, Asur Lahatman, is Mekame Delishma'e, before he heard from Rabbi Shmuel, but Rabbi Yossi, that which we'll mention in a moment. He didn't know about it, he said Asur Lahatman. But when we quoted the Braisa that Rebbe hitir is lebasar delishme'ei, after he heard that which Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Yossi said, that the Yosef Rebbe was sitting once v'amar, and he was paskening that asur lahatman esatzainan. This isur of hatmana on Shabbos, even the davar she'ein ha'moisav hevel, also includes insulating cold for it to stay cold. However, Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Yossi was then a Talmud of Rebbe. He says, for Rebbe to know that Abba, my father, meaning Rebbe Yossi, he allowed to insulate cold. And the moment Rebbe heard that, he said, if that's the case, kfar hoira zakein. In other words, since the elder already was lenient, hoira lakula, that's normally when you use the word hoira, so I acquiesce to his opinion. Wow, that means Rebbe was subordinate to Rabbi Yossi. So Amar Rav Papa, boy kama machalav and zedze. Come and see how the Tanoim cherished and respected and loved one the other. She'ilu Rabbi Yossi kayom, when Rabbi Yossi was alive, Rabbi Yossi was subordinate to Rebbe. Hayokafu v'yoshev lifnei Rebbe. How do we know that he was subordinate in front of Rebbe? What's the raya? Because his son, Rabbi Shmuel, the Rabbi Yossi, was subordinate in front of Rebbe. Rabbi Shmuel, the Rabbi Yossi. Now, sometimes the father is not subordinate. The son is because the father feels he's like an equal. Sometimes the son is on a lower level, and the son does become subordinate. But Rabbi Shmuel, the Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Yossi were on the same level. Because Rabbi Shmuel, the Rabbi Yossi, the memale makim avois of Havon, and the Rebbe always emphasized the concept of a mamala makim, that he was mamish in the place of the person in whose shoes he's being memala makim. And we know that Rabbi Shmuel was kafu v'yoshel lifnei Rebbe. So since Rabbi Shmuel, that was on the level of his father, if he was batel for Rebbe, is a raya that his father was batel in front of Rebbe. Because if his father wouldn't have had that attitude, he would not have had that attitude. So it's amazing. So each one was batel to the other. So on one hand, Rabbi Yossi was batel before Rebbe, and here we see v'kama, but still Rebbe says, and Rebbe acquiesced. Rebbe changed his psak din. And it's a big thing. He's not going l'chumra. Rebbe went l'kula. Why did he go l'kula? Because he found out that Rabbi Yossi was lenient, and therefore we are allowed to insulate cold for it to remain cold. Says the Gemara, Amalei Rav Nachman, to Ledaru Avdei. He told him two things. Number one, Atman Litzainan. He told him that on Shabbos. Insulate that cold thing. It's a hot day. I want it to remain cold. So clearly we see over here that Rav Nachman followed Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, that he followed the change of Rebbe, like Rabbi Yossi. And then he told him another statement. This other statement is not Shabbos related. The other statement was, Va'aisili mayim, bring for me water, even though the achim kafela arma'a. Arma'a doesn't only mean a Armenian, it means a non-Jew. Kafela means a cook. Bring me water that was cooked by a guy. Once I will drink from hot water, even though it was cooked by a guy. In other words, normally the rule is that foods that are cooked by goyim, as we have in Avodah Zarah, is going to be asur for us to consume under the rabbinic prohibition of bishul akum. Here we see that water is not included in bishul akum, as the Gemara will explain in a moment. So Shama Rav Ami, when Rav Ami heard about both of these statements, veikpat, he objected to both of them. And Amar Rabbi Yosef, so Rabbi Yosef tells Rav Ami, why are you upset at Rav Nachman? My tama ikbad, ki Rab Vasei Avid Rav Nachman is acting in accordance to his Rebbe's. Chada Kirav and V'chada Kishmuel. Kishmuel, the Amar Yehuda Mar Shmuel, Mutal Hatman Esatzayna. And here we are saying that Shmuel was the Rab Vasei, was the Rebbe of Rav Nachman. So why are you upset at him? You know that Shmuel was lenient, so was Rav Nachman. Why are you upset that Rav Nachman is drinking water that was heated up by a guy? Well, how can you have a problem with that? That follows another Rebbe of Rav Nachman, which is Rav. The Amar Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak Amar Rav, Kol Shehu Nechol Kamei Shehu Chai, anything that could be consumed as it is before being heated up, including water. You can have water cold, you can have water hot. Ein Boi Mishum Bishul Einachim, there's no prohibition to begin with. Right? We learned the Sugi in Avodah Zarah. I mean, the three big limitations to Bishul Akum is number one, the one that we just learned right now, that if it's nechel kamei shehu chai, even though the guy did warm it, you are allowed to have it because you did not need for this to be warmed or heated or cooked up. The other heted is anything that is not oila al shulchan malachim is not included in the isur of bishul akum. Remember that? And that's a much harder to define. Something that can be eaten raw is easy to define. Something that it is, does this go al shulchan malachim or not? It's more vague. And the third is that even if something cannot be eaten raw, and even if it's an item that is oil al shulchan malachim, piece of meat, nevertheless, the isur is only Now let's go like the Ramah. If everything was done from the goy, from the beginning until the end, but if there was a yid involved in any part of it, and according to us, Ashkenazim, according to the Ramah, even if it was only that the Jew made the fire, and when the Jew made the fire, the food wasn't even on the fire yet. It's not included in Bishul. Anyways, coming back over here, so all of this is Akasha. So why are you makbid? What bothers you? And the Gemara responds with a very big klal that Rav Ami said. So Rav Ami tells Rav Yosef, Savar, or the Gemara is explaining why. For who Savar? Adam Chashuv Shani. Adam Chashuv Shani means that since Rav Nachman is an Adam Chashuv, says Rashi, to a conversation we had yesterday after we finished the shiur on Zoom about Marasayan, where do you draw the line? So Rashi says, Shaharoya Oisai, Shuhu Mekel, Oimedu Mekel Yosef. When a Talmud looks at us as a Rebbe, he says that my Rebbe is on a level higher than me. And it's not only that if my Rebbe is lenient, I'll be lenient because my Rebbe did it, I can do it. It's more than that. I'm going to say whatever my Rebbe does, Lakula, I can do a bit more Lakula. I expect for my Rebbe to be ahead of me. In other words, Me'ikar Adin, you can be matnan tzaynin. Me'ikar Adin, you can take water, coffee today that's cooked by a guy, there's no bishalak. But from someone like Rav Nachman, Rav Ami felt that he should have been machmer. Why should he have been machmer? So like this is Talmidim, and the people that look at him, they're not going to be doing like him. They'll go a notch down, but a notch down from his behavior will still be within the halachic parameters. But if the Rebbe himself is already going with all of the kulas which are allowed to be used, the problem is that the Talmud will be more makel. More makel is going to be a problem. Very interesting concept. With the expectation on an Adam Chashuv, there's an expectation that we have to go v'mezak lefnim mishur asadin. Okay, Tana Rabbanan. Continues the Gemara by bringing a Tosefta. Afal pisha amru ein toimim medavar afilu medavar sheinu moisef hevel. Clear, right? Even though you're insulating in an article that does not add heat, and we may not do so if it was uninsulated before Shabbos, you can't do it once it's already Shabbos, once it's already dark. However, in Balahoisef, if you want to add additional insulations, you already wrapped it in a blanket, you want to wrap it in an additional blanket, Moisef, you are allowed to do it. So holds the Tanakama. Now let's learn the Gemara the way, let's say, Tosfos learns it. Tanakama allows you to add the insulation. But what happens if you want to take it out of insulation number one and put it in a different insulator? That the Tanakama says you can't do. Now comes the second sheet in the Tosefta. You know how far he can do that. Rashbag says more. Not only can you add an insulator, more than that, you can take it out of sadinim. Sadinim are sheets, they're thin. So they insulate, they maintain shvach, weak, and you can take it out of the sadinim on Shabbos. You put it in the sadinim before Shabbos. But now that it's already, you already did atmana, you can take it out on Shabbos, and you can put it into a coat. And Tosfos holds that's a bigger chiddush, and the Tanakama doesn't hold at kedekach. Or you can take it out of the gelufkerin and you can put it in sadinim. What's the chiddush in that? That's a good point. But bottom line is you can even change the insulation. And v'chein hoya rashbag oimer, there's another kula. V'chein is not the same. Another leniency. La yasru ela oisam mecham. What may not be insulated? Lechatchila on Shabbos. The pot itself that was on the fire, what we call a klei rishoin, avol pinami mecham lo mecham. If you have something that was not insulated before Shabbos, right? We gave an example from a tshuva when Av Moshe, we quoted the tshuva about a thermos that you are allowed to put hot water in a thermos on Shabbos. That's this. If you take the food out of the first pot and you put it into another pot, that means now you already have a klei sheni. The klei sheni could be lechatchila insulated on Shabbos, obviously as long as it is b'davar she'eino moisav hevel. Now, the Gemara wants to understand why indeed so, right? So we're going to take a pause from the Brais and the Gemara interjects. I'll tell you why. Because like we learned Rashi in the beginning of today's shiur, the reason why midrabanan you may not do hatmana even b'davar she'einu ma'asav hevel on Shabbos is because gezeda shema yartiach. You might want to make it warm. If you want to make something hotter, you're not going to move it into a klei sheni. The act of moving food from klei rishon to klei sheni, that in itself cools it off. You made it cooler by moving it into a new pot. Are we afraid that you're going to warm it up? Of course not. You don't want it to become freezing. You want to maintain a certain level of heat, but your mom is going in the opposite direction. You're not going from cold to hot. You're going from hot to cold. In that direction, you can do it lachatchila on Shabbos. At least so holds the Rashbak. Bite it in the Brais. So now says the Brais, this is a little bit connected to the Mishnah Daf Mem Tes. Now we're going to go back to Muktzah. Taman v'kisa b'davar hanitul b'Shabbos. Taman is, we spoke to Ramah in our intro as well. Let's go with the Ramah. That proper hatmana means that the walls are insulated. That's called taman. And the top of the pot is insulated. If the top is not insulated, it's not called hatmana. We explained that's why we use a crock pot on Shabbos. Even though you can argue a crock pot should be prohibited, even though you're putting it on the electricity avada before Shabbos because it's moisav hevel. The answer is because it's not covered, only the walls are. So there's taman and kisa. Taman are the walls of the pot, kisa means the cover. So if the walls and the cover are b'davar hanitul b'Shabbos in an article that's not muktzah, that you may move on Shabbos, or even if taman b'davar she'eino nitul b'Shabbos, even if the walls are b'davar she'eino nitul, right? Like we learned yesterday, you have a merchant who sells certain wool shearings, and he makes a lot of money from it. He's selling it to people that make garments. Yeah, Punkt Shabbos, his wife lost the original item she used to make hatmana, so he took it off the shelf and he brought it home. He's planning after Shabbos to sell it. So this is something that she'ein nitul b'Shabbos. But at least the top, v'kisa b'davar nitul b'Shabbos, knows as long as you can have access to the pot without violating, moving muktzah, that is good. Harei ze noitul. Right, because even if the walls are muktzah, take it from the top. And like we learned over here, we learned in the Mishnah, that since it was already insulated, like Tosfos says, even though you took it out yourself, umachsa, you can put it back in. You're not moving muktzah. The walls you're not touching, and the cover is not muktzah. However, says the Braisa, taman v'kisa b'davar she'eino nitul b'Shabbos, if both the walls and the cover is muktzah, or even shetaman b'davar nitul b'Shabbos, the walls are not muktzah, but if the cover is muktzah. So now what? So says the Braisa, if part of the mouth, if part of the top was not mamish fully insulated, that means you can touch you can get into the food without directly touching the muktzah, then again, you don't have a problem. Not only can you take the food out, you can take the pot out. Why can you take the pot out? This is your classical tiltul min atzad, right? We had this again on top of the Amud. We finished learning about it yesterday. Tiltul min atzad, according to the Maskon of the Gemara, as long as you're not doing it directly is okay, then leitel machzer. Problem will be v'imlav, meaning if the entire top is covered with muktzah. So now the question will be, how are you going to get access to the food? Now, before we go on, you can right away ask the question, I don't understand the problem. Why can't you do tiltul min atzad? Meaning, especially if the walls is not muktzah, that's one of the two cases, even though the top is muktzah. So why don't you pick up the walls and tilt the pot? You're not touching muktzah directly, and the cover will roll off. Why isn't that a simple solution? And indeed, look inside the Rashi, before we turn to Daf Nun Aleph Amud Beis, Rashi, 3 lines under the Gemara. Frekt Rashi ve'im toimer, yifana seviv oisel. Right, one of the cases in the Braisa was that the walls around the pot is not muktzah, so that take away. Hoyil v'davar hanitul, that's one of the cases. So now you can touch the pot itself, and v'yochazeno b'doifneha. Now the problem is that the pot's cover is muktzah. Okay, so v'yatena altzida. So tilt the pot to the side, and v'yipala kisoi. And then Rashi adds that we're going to find later in Perek Noitel Daf Kuf Mem Beis a case where you had a barrel and there was a stone on a barrel. Stones by default are muktzah. So there the Braisa says tilt the barrel and the stone will fall off. Or The Brisa, we're going to learn later, Mishnah, I'm sorry, even more. What happens if the barrel is amongst many other barrels? If you're going to just tilt it on the side, the rock might break another barrel. So pick it up and take it out, and then tilt it to the side. So what's the problem of the Brisa? And here Rashi gives a gewaldige answer. We learned a few times about the din of a base. The reason why you can't pick up the pot is because the pot became a basis to the muktzah cover. Wow. What about the case that we just quoted from Kufman Beis, Ahmed Beis, where there was a barrel and a stone? So Rashi says the case we're going to learn later is where the rock was not placed the kavana on the barrel. There is where we can argue, since it fell on the barrel, the balabas did not put it there, we're not going to define the barrel as a base to the rock. The barrel is a barrel to hold wine. By accident, a rock fell in it, who cares? It's not a basis. But over here, you made hatmana. Let's go with the Ramah. You were mechuyev to cover it before Shabbos. If not, you don't even have hatmana. So you put the cover with intent. It's the cover is over the pot. The pot, Rashi says, becomes a basis l'davar ha'asur. So now we have a problem, because if the muktzah completely covers the top, so the only way you're going to get it off is by moving the pot. You can't move the pot because the pot becomes a basis. So that's the ve'im lav. Now we can go geshmak to daf nun aleph amid beis. So indeed, you don't have an option. There's nothing you can do. So be careful. Don't cover your pot before Shabbos with something that is classified as muktzah, especially if it's going to be completely covered. Okay.
Can it take it without putting back? But can it do noitel or no?
Let me just word. Rab Shlomo really is asking that the word umachzir is superfluous. Ain't a noitel. That's the point. You can't take it. You can't get to it because you're going to be violating muktzah. And you can't move muktzah. Okay? There's many kashas on Rashi. One kasha on Rashi will be, okay, let's say the pot is muktzah. It's a basis. So what? So tilt the pot kela achayad. And maybe you could do that. Maybe you could do it. Ein a noitel amachs means you can't take it normally. You can't take it normally. But if you do it not normally, I'll tell you another thing, Shlomo. Maybe it's also not machzer, because let's say you're going to tilt the pot, tilt men atzad. But how are you going to be machzer? In other words, also the cover is muktzah, so you're going to have to put the cover back up also men atzad. Maybe that's what the Brisa means. You have to be careful with muktzah. Just because you're good to go b'dinei hatmana doesn't mean that you don't have to look at all the other issues. In our case, muktzah. Okay, now weiter.
Didn't we also learn that a basis is, if it has on it a davar mutter, you're allowed to move it, even though it has usher on it. So if the pot has food in it, it's a basis.
No. The food is in the pot. This is on top of the pot. At least to speak out. So Rav Remel is asking, why don't we say it's a basis of davar mutter or davar aser? A good question. Maybe I'm giving the right approach, because it's not equal. One is in it, one is on top of it. All right. Just to know that many other Rishonim challenge Rashi altogether. But anyways, let's go back. We had this a few daf ago. When you comb flax, you have these little shtikelach that fall off. If it's fine, then it's like zevel. And therefore, don't use it, even if you're putting it into it before Shabbos, because davar that is moisef hevel midrabanan may not be used, even if you put it in it erev Shabbos. Another din, manichan mecham al gabi mecham. Mecham meant a kettle. Normally, the kettles in the times of Chazal were made out of copper. Just to know, kedera, a pot, is generally earthenware. Earthenware becomes hotter than copper. So that which is in a kedera is even hotter than that which is in a mecham. They're both over yatsi ledes, but that's negeya. So first of all, if you have two mechams, you have two kettles, and they're both very hot. On Shabbos, you can take one mecham and put it on top of the other. You can take one kedera and put it on top of a kedera. Here again, avada, you're not adding to the heat. And by the way, this is not Atmana. This is already back to the previous Pedic. And now the Chiddush of the Brais is weiter, and we're dafke going to take out the word Avol. Look on the left side by me, the Masaydas Hashas. Take out Avol. Furthermore, you could put a Kedera on top of a Mecham. And the biggest Chiddush is you can put a Mecham on top of a Kedera, like Rashi says over here, even though the Mecham is copper and the Kedera is earthenware. But since they are both already hot, on Shabbos, you can put one on top of the other. Or another example, if you have a pot and it's already covered, but you want to seal the cover shut. Why do you want to seal it shut? Because the fact that it's unsealed is allowing some steam to go out. You want to make sure that all of the steam stays in it. That is something that you also may do. But not to warm up cold food. None of this is why. All of this, you're not warming up cold food. All of what we learned, you are maintaining the heat. Now, when you're sealing it, you're maintaining the heat for longer. According to the way we learned this Braisa, the Chiddush is, even though the Kedera, right, is being put, even though the Mecham is being put on top of the Kedera, it doesn't matter. They are both on. They both began on the fire. They're both very hot. So putting one on top of the other is all considered halachically as only maintaining heat. And that was Rebbe's original opinion. You may not insulate on Shabbos, even cold, to keep it cold. However, at the end, after you hear from Rabbi Yossi, Rebbe hit the lat nasatzoinen. And a final din in the Mishnah, in the Braisa. You may not crush, not snow, nor hail. You don't have water, but you have snow, you have hail. So you want to crush, today we crush the ice in order to make it into water. That may not be done on Shabbos if it is bishvil sheyozoivu meima, because you want it to become flowy water. So you cannot be a dayim, crush snow, crush hail, today crush ice to make it into water. Why not? So have a look inside Rashi. Let's hope we remember that Shabbos daf nun aleph, Kadesh Yezoivu Meimam, a few lines before the end of the Pedic, Bishum de Kamoilid B'Shabbos, V'dami L'Malacha, Sheboirei Hamayim Ha'el. And it's important, Chavre, this is an opportunity. Many people confuse Moilid and Noilad. Don't confuse them. Noilad means that if something was not even in the world from before Shabbos or Yontiv, so it wasn't Muchan for Shabbos and Yontiv because it wasn't here, like an egg that's born. So therefore, it's called Noilad. It just came into the world. It wasn't prepared prior, so it's Muksa. That's an Isra Midrabanan. Moilid is a tulda of binyan. You cannot make something new. You're building something. So Rashi holds that the problem with biyadayim, crushing ice, is that before there was no water. Now you are making something that wasn't here before, moilid. And you should know that halachically it's something new. For example, when there isn't a better solution, ad hayom hazeh halacha l'maisa, a person makes a mikvah. You're making a mikvah here in this part of the world, right? It doesn't rain a lot, and you need to have the 40 saw in the boiler of the mikvah. So one solution will be to fill it up with snow, to fill it up with ice. And then when the snow turns into water, when the ice turns into water, these waters just came into the world now. It's a new metzias. And they were never previously gathered. They're not mayim shuvim. So you can't do it be a dime. Aval, however, the Braisa concludes, but if you put these items into a cup or inside a bowl, we're speaking here that we're not inside liquid the way we are machman. Stop, you put it in a bowl. There's nothing else in the bowl. That means that you're not doing it biyadayim. So this Tana holds that's not a problem. The Eino Chayshesh, like Rashi writes, the last line in the Pedic, Shenemoyach me'elav. Having said that, we all know this is something that we practice, that it's lachatchila not good to do that, that if you want to use ice, it's ideal for you to put the ice in your water, in your juice. So it shouldn't even seem like before there was no water and now there's water, but that's already a chumrah. But according to the Tana over here, you may not do it with your hands, but if you put it in a bowl and over time it's going to melt, you're not You're not giving birth to anything on Shabbos. You're not creating anything on Shabbos, and you're not violating any of Hilchos Shabbos. And with that, we say Hadron Allah Bameh Toimim, and God willing, now we start with Perik Hamishi Bameh Behema Yoitza. Now,
Rabbi, quick question on obviously this price is not addressing the idea of noilad relative to snow.
I can't hear you.
I said this brisa is obviously not discussing the idea of noilad relative.
Not true. That's the way Rashi learns it. Correct. Lashitas Rashi.
That it's not speaking about noilad.
Correct.
Because otherwise you would say that this would have to be snow that was here from before Shabbos, but wouldn't it then be muksa?
No. Yeah. No. In other words, other Rishonim learned the problem here is that now this is noilad. That, and I just wanted to. That's others learned that way. We're pointing out that that's not just to know. When Rashi speaks about moilid is not noilad. Noilad is
right.
Okay, right. Let's go right. Now, like this. There is what most people know. There's machamer acher behemtoi. Machamer acher behemtoi means that I am leading my animal when my animal is doing a malacha. That's one unique prohibition. Then there is a much more generic prohibition, like we mentioned in the intro. There is a machlekes and the rishonim whether this is asur as a lav or asur as a asay, but for sure there is a concept called shfisas behemtoi, laman yanuach. Shvisas behemte means that if my animal is eating, that's okay. He's being kaitzed, he's doing it for himself and other behaviors. But if my animal is doing something for me, even if I'm not there, let's now focus on carrying. If there's something on my animal when he's walking, or then the owner is violating shvisas behemtoi. However, you have hetadim. Number one, any article of apparel. In other words, an article that's put on the animal to shelter the animal, to keep the animal warm, or to protect it from heat. And again, according to Rashi, apparel can also include a tachshit. It's an ornament.
Rabbi, it's apparel.
Apparel that is mutter.
What is it anyway? You keep saying apparel. What is it?
It's today. Today is in Galo still. The last moment. The minhag here is that people own dogs, and not only that, they treat their dogs lahavdil the way you should treat a person. They put the clothing on it, and they have cribs for it, and carriages for it, v'chule, v'chule. So if you have a nice sweater, dog sweater. So if the dog sweater is there as apparel, let's say it doesn't need it, but it's a tachshit, according to Rashi, it's okay. Now, the other big heter, and that's the heter we're beginning with, is gear that's put on the animal, which will facilitate the owner restraining the animal. So let's speak about a dog with a leash. So the leash is not called carrying because the leash is on the animal in order for the owner to restrain the animal. That's a very important point. Okay. Having said that, there are going to be other isurim. There are some things that even if they on their own should be permitted because it's apparel or because it's gear to restrain, if there is a chashash that it might
apparel.
If there's a chashash that it's going to fall off, just like we're going to have in the next Pedic, jewelry theoretically a woman can wear. But if there's an article that there's a possibility that it will fall off or she'll take it off to show her to her chaver, if something falls off, then Chazal were afraid you won't put it on right away, you might carry it. We're going to get to that as well. But that's a limitation to the heter. But let's go to this. We're speaking about gear for restraint. That's the opening of the Pedic. Zok the Holy Mishnah. Bameh behema yoitza, because it's gear for control, and ubameh eina yoitza, or what is not included in these hetadim. It's not gear, it's not garments, it's not a tachshit, and therefore my animal cannot go out with it because it's considered a burden, a masa, and so what? I'm commanded to make sure that my animals don't violate Shabbos, Shvisas Meim. So here the Mishnah goes into details. So Yoitze Hagamol Ba'afsar. Afsar in English is a halter. It's a certain rope that was used to control camels. So a gamel could go out Ba'afsar. Naka is a certain type of female, one humped camel called a naka that can go Ba'chatam. Chatam means a nose ring A nose ring was a more aggressive restraint mechanism than a rope, because mama's hurts when you put a ring in the nose and through that ring you put a rope, then you have greater koyach to restrain the animal. Now, if the animal is not a wilde chaya, they would never use a nose ring. So normally you would put a restraint according to the need of that animal. So as a naka is wilder than a gamel, and afsar is not enough to generally control a naka. You need a chatam, so you can put a chatam, or you can have your animal go out with the chatam. Like we mentioned, the big question will be, what happens if you put a chatam on a gamel? Is that called, you didn't need the chatam, but if you did it, but it's still there to restrain it, that will be the kasha that we're going to have in the Gemara. Another example, luvdikim. Luvdikim is a certain type of donkey from a place called Luv. They were gewaldige donkeys, and they were also strong. And therefore, since they were very strong, for you to control them, you would put a prumbia, you would put a bit in the mouth. It's another part of a restraint. And again, it's needed because these animals are wilde chayas. Or stam a horse bisheir. Shed means a collar. Pashut, a simple the collar. Like, there's a collar, there's a ring in the collar, and that's the ring through which you put a rope. I would guess that's what most people use in their dogs. But you can put that on you can put it on there, that if my sus is going out with the sheir, it's not a problem. I'm not over shvisas behema. And here the Mishnah gives the cloud that v'chol balei hashir, or v'chol palei hasheir al pi nigla al pi pshat, that any animal that customarily wears this collar, yoitzim b'sheir, v'nim shachem b'sheir. And here we have the famous story from Rabbi Yosef Kolboy, just to know that the Alter Rebbe used to travel around in Lithuania, and he gathered people in shuls, and they had a lot of questions on the shita of Hasidus, etc. And the meaning was that they would ask him questions, and the Alter Rebbe was so great that he didn't answer a question, answer, but everyone would ask all the questions first, and after everyone gave all the questions, the Alter Rebbe would give one answer and answer everyone's question. Whoever knows Rabbi Shachat Shlita, he has the same minig over here. That's what, at least when I was in yeshiva, he used to do that. Oh, so he came to Shklov, and there were great Talmidei Chachamim, and they asked him very difficult questions, including in the crowd was Rabbi Yosef Kolboy. He was called Kolboy because he was a Kolboynik. Everything was in him, and he was, up until this story, he was a great misnagid. And after everyone asked all these questions, that what bothered the Yidden in Shklov was the fact that Hasidim take my Mare Chazal and they give a Hasidic insight that bothered them. And one of the insights that they heard previously is that the Alter Rebbe used to say, I don't know if it was in his name or in the name of his Rebbe or in the name of the Holy Baal Shem Tov, that Kol Balei Hashir, that all of the masters of song, who's a master of song? He touched that it's neshamot and malachim. We are masters of song. That you know what the power of a nigan is? That the yoitzim b'shir v'nem shachem b'shir. There's a ratzui and shoif. Sai when you want to go up. Sai when you want to come back down. You do it through the medium of a nigan. And it bothered them that we had such a Hasidic Torah. So after people asked Alter Rebbe very difficult questions, including Rabbi Yosef Kolboy asked questions that he had previously asked to all of the greats of that generation, and no one had an answer for him. So the Alter Rebbe began to answer by saying, Kol Balei Hashir, Yoitzim B'Shir, V'nem Shachem B'Shir. And then he says that Nigan has a special koyach. And the Alter Rebbe didn't give people a verbal answer to the questions. Listen to this, the Alter Rebbe sung a Nigan. And when he was singing the Nigan, everyone's questions was answered. And Rabbi Yosef Kolboy was there. He says he experienced as if knots were undone in his mind. Everything became clear to him, and he became the biggest chassid of the Alter Rebbe. That's this Mishnah. Back in the Mishnah. Then the Mishnah continues. Now, Pin Nigla Devinim Shachem B'Sheir is a little bit superfluous. What's Yoitzim B'Sheir? But we'll see more about this in the Gemara. Umazin Aliyah means like this, that if this sheir became Tami B'Tumas Meis, and it has to also undergo this sprinkling, the Hazov Mechatos, says the Mishnah, you don't need to take it off the animal, even while it's on the animal, you can do the Hazah on the sheir. Why not? What's the Chiddush? The Chiddush is that if, when you sprinkle the water, that's in the Hisop, if the water hits the animal before it touched the shiur, when the animal doesn't need the animal doesn't need sprinkling, the balachai doesn't become tamei, then there is a rule, as Allah Sinai, and not only was the sprinkling not valid, but the remaining water in the azoif is also invalidated. So you would think, since we're not allowed to be metame or invalidate mechatas, you would be mechuyev to take the shiur off the animal before you do hazah. Says the Mishnah, you don't have to do that. You just make sure that when you sprinkle the shiur, the water should fall straight on the shiur. And the final din in the Mishnah is the noitlin de mekaimon, the toivlin de mekaimon. Again, if the shiur became tamei, and now it needs Tefilla, you don't have to take it off the neck of the animal and to take it into the mikvah. You can leave it on the animal and take the animal with the shiur into the mikvah. In other words, obviously these collars were not so tightly wrapped around the neck of the animal. First of all, choke them to death. But also for the mikvah wouldn't be good, because then there would be a chatzitza. They were loose collars, as they should be, so you can breathe. And because of their looseness, you can take them while they're on the animal and you don't have an issue of chatzitza. Okay, so now the Gemara begins technically. First of all, when the Mishnah, we know what a gomel is, and everyone knew what an afsar is, a halter on a camel. But what's the naka and what's the chatam? Omar Rabba bar bar Chana, naka is dafka naksa, chivarti, a white female camel called a naksa, naka. It's a particularly wild camel. It's a one-humped camel, and because of it being wild, an afsar was not enough of a restraint. And what was the common article that they put on the animal was bizamama de parzalam. They would have a ring of iron, and since this is needed, it's not called carrying. The next case in the Mishnah was veluvdikim beprumbia. So what is that? So Amarafuna, it's a chamar, it's a donkey that comes from a region in Bavel known as Luba. And there, that was so wild that bepagei the barzala, that you can put a bite of iron in its mouth from which you would put a rope. All of that is allowed to be done because it was needed. Now that we mentioned that the chamorim of Luba were extraordinarily strong, so a story, Levi once sent money to Bechazoi, that they traveled to Luba, as we'll see in a moment, from where Levi lived to Luba was a 6-month journey in a caravan. So he wasn't going to go there, but he knew people are going there. He gave them money. Lemizban lay Chamara Luba, that they should use this money to buy for Levi this Luvian donkey. And the shluchim got there. The people in Luba, out of their respect to Levi, did not do what Levi wanted. They felt that if they're going to send the animal back, the animal is going to go on a trip for 6 months, the animal will get weak. So he's not going to get a strong animal. Eloma, they knew that he's looking for a strong chamoir. So tsaru, they wrap the money back. They send them back the money. And on top of that, shadrulei sa'arei, they sent Sa'odim back to him. Why were they trying to tell him? To hint to him that the nigrei, the chamira, sa'arei, that in order to give koyach to a chamoir, even if you don't have a chamoir from Luba, if you feed a camel well, you give him barley, he'll be very strong. You're looking for a strong camel, buy your local, donkey, buy a local chamoir, but feed it properly, and it's going to be the best it could be, as close as a chamara of Luba. And again, they didn't do it because they felt that the schlep from Luba back there, says Rashi, would weaken the chamoir. He wouldn't benefit from getting this imported. By the time you got it, there's no big yichas with it. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, that machlifin lifnei Rebbe shazu bezumau. They asked Rebbe, what happens, not a gamel with an afsar and a naka with a chatam, the opposite. What happens if you put an afsar on a naka or a chatam on a camel? And now we clarify. Naka ba'afsar loiti bayalach. Can a naka walk out with a halter? That part they didn't mean to ask. That's not a kasha. Why is that not a kasha? Because since a naka is a vilda camel, and a normal afsar won't restrain it. So if it won't restrain it, then you're carrying, because it's not a restraint. That avada is not a kivan the min today. So masuihu, it's a masu. You're violating shvisas behema. Kiti boilach. What they meant to ask was, if you have a gumel, it would have sufficed only putting on an afser. You went ahead and you put on a chatam. It's excessive restraint. Do we say kivan the sagaleba afsar? So you went beyond what's needed. So masuihu. So now it's considered a masoi, and therefore also for you to allow your animal to go out. Daladamis or Midashusayachadrishusarabim or Niterusi Yaserto. It was beyond what you needed, but still it's there to restrain the animal. It will function to restrain the animal. So if it's to restrain the animal, it's excluded from the Isser. Amar Lofanov, that Rabbi Shmuel, the Rabbi Yossi. All of Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yossi. So they asked the question in front of Rabbi. So here you don't have a Moed Halacha Lifnei Rabbi. Rabbi Shmuel notified. He said that Kach Amar Abba, my father said, Rabbi Yossi said, and we just learned on Amad Aleph how Rebbe was machshav. What Rabbi Yossi says, he said, Arba behemos yoitzos ba'afser. 4 animals can go out with an afser, with an halter. The sus, the petted, the mule, the gummel, the camel, the chamoyer, the donkey. Now, why did he count to 4? Is this list exclusive? And the Havamina is, L'mu'ute mai, lav l'mu'ute gamol b'chatam. That is what this implies. So Rebbe tells Rabbi Shmuel, I respect what your father says, but your implication is wrong. Loi, this might be only l'mu'ute nakaba afser. Like we just, nakaba afser is not good because since it's ineffective, it's called carrying. Maybe that is what he meant to exclude. Now the Gemara says, B'chlal, who says he meant to exclude? There are times that people give a list. They don't mean to give you a exhaustive list for you to imply only this and nothing else. Sometimes he gave 4 examples, and there can be more things, and that's the continuation. So the Masnisa Tani, we learned in another brayso that a Ludvikin and a Gomel can go ba'afsar if they could go. Now, in other words, this brayso held. Every case is a case. If you know your behemoth avil dechaya and it b'chlal won't restrain, then you can't do it. If it's some restraint, then it's good enough. The point we're trying to make is it's just like we see from this Masnisa that Ludvikin can go out with an afsar. This was not mentioned by Rabbi Shmuel, but Rabbi Yossi did not mention this one of the 4 is the haraya that his list is not exhaustive. So don't imply anything from this statement. Nothing can be proven from it. Now, this question that we had, whether excessive restraint is masui or it's okay, really ketanoi, it's a machlekes tanoim. And here was the brayso. Ein chaya yoytze besugar. Sugar is the most flimsy. I'm sorry, not the most flimsy. It's a collar made out of rope. There's one madregi even weaker. So he says a chaya cannot go with a sugar. Hananya says yes. Yoytze besugar ubechol davar hamishtamer. End of machlekes. Now we have to clarify what exactly are we referring to. But my Yaskinan asks the Gemara, a sugar for sure won't restrain a grace achaya. So why is there a machlekes? You know what's a chaya? A cat is a chaya. Cat is very little. It's very easy to restrain it. In other words, Tanakama holds even the sagi leib the Mishnah. Mishnah is the simplest way. It's an ordinary cord. Since to restrain a cat, you only need a Mishnah, and you put on the sugar, so you went beyond what you need. Excessive restraint. Tanakama holds masoyu. That's the machlekes. And Hananya holds, even though it was not needed, so what? But it's being used for restraint, and it works. And that's taka the mean, that's taka the case, and that's the machlekes tanoim. And now the question is, what's the halacha? Amar Rafuna Barchia Amar Shmuel halacha kechananya. And we'll conclude today's share with the following story, which is connected to all this. Levi, the son of Rafuna Barchia, and Rabba Barafuna. Rabba was the teacher of Levi. They were both traveling on the road together. Each one was on their own donkey. And Kadmei Chamara de Levi la Chamara de Rabba Barafuna, and the donkey of Levi went in front of the Chamor of Rabba, and because of that, Chalishtaik Rabba Barafuna, he became distressed. Not that
probably gave him a lot of sorim.
Toisvis reminds us, the end of the last Toisvis, we just learned Chevra and Brachas, that Ei Mechavlim Elba Pesach, when you come to a door entrance by a mezuzah, there the Katan has to be Mechaba de Gadol. But there the Gemara says that on a road, you don't have to give kivudim. Why did it bother him? So here you have divrei Torah anim b'makamachad v'ashir b'makamachad. You learn a Gemara, aside of it not being halacha, here we have another nuance that we didn't have in brachas. And the Tiritz Rabbeinu Tam says to Isvis, the Hassan kishein hochem b'chabura achas. When two people are not traveling together as a group, happens to be that I'm on the same 101 together with my Rebbe. There I can pass my teacher. But if I set out on a journey together with him, even baderech, the Talmud should not have his vehicle go in front of the vehicle of the Rebbe. Here you do have to be machabed, says Rabbeinu Tam. And Levi went in front of Rabbah. Now, the truth be told, why did that happen? Not because Levi was not being machabed Rabbah, Barafuna, and he knew that you should. It was because Levi had a wilde donkey. The donkey was wild. And he knew that his teacher might feel slighted, so he told him implicitly why it happened. He wanted to notify his teacher that it's not me, it's my chamoy, it's Meshuggah. And how did he tell it him? So Levi, when he was going ahead of Rabbah, they're both, it's a open vehicle. It's a convertible, a donkey, right? So you can speak to the guy in the other donkey. Emily Milsa, tell me something. He told it to him in order to calm him down. Daf Nun Beis, the top Rashi. To be disrespectful. It's my animal that's wild. Amalei, if someone is having a chamor like mine, Levi tells him, that's wild, that's hard to restrain. Can I put a bit? Now, a bit normally is excessive. Can I put a bit? Now, really, Levi knew that you can put a bit on anyone because we pass him like Hananiah. He really asked him this question, that was his way of telling his Rebbe, here's the chaim, my donkey is wild, it's not me. I was trying to go behind you, my donkey went ahead of you. Amalei, so here, Rabbi told him what we just learned, that in the name of Shmuel, halacha kechananya, so even if it would be a bit excessive, it's permitted because we are lenient like Hananiah. God willing to be continued.
Hazaku Baruch. Yom Tov.
Shkayach, Rabbi.
Come have a great day, everybody.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Shkayach.
Thank you, Rabbi. Shkoyach Rab Noyach.